My name is Susan Burnison, and I'm interviewing Ben Petmecky of San Marcos, Texas. My husband, Rob Burnison, is videotaping. We are talking with Ben as part of an oral history project about the Brentwood and Crestview neighborhoods of Austin, Texas. And the project is called The Voices of the Violet Crown.
That's very impressive.
Well,
I didn't know that Austin had a violet crown for a long time. I knew it had a lot of kind of a funny glow over the top at night. Anyway, it's a beautiful town, I think, and I love it. My ancestors have been there for generations. You're not photographing me now, are you?
yes.
Ah. Well, as I said a while ago, my name is, I was born Ben Joe Petmecky Jr. No, Benjamin Joseph Petmecky Jr. But I shortened it as soon as I could and got rid of the junior. I still get mail from the University of Texas, from which I have 3 degrees, addressed to Benjamin Joseph Petmecky Jr. And I've been to the registrar's office and told them to change it. I don't know why they didn't. Well, if this is going to be about me, I guess I'm supposed to talk about myself. I am 86 years old, and I've had 2 strokes, and I cannot walk, and there's a lot of things I can't do. And of course, it makes you mad, but you just sort of put up with it. I used to live in the area that you've been talking about. I bought a little house there almost 60 years ago. And this house was built by an architecture student. It's sort of slanted across the block, and it was made out of transite panels. Transite is a product about 1/4 of an inch thick, and it's made of cement and asbestos, very smooth. And there were these panels making a wall all around the front yard, and so nobody could see in at all. The house is still there. The side of the house that faced the inside yard was all glass, and actually there were 2 couples lived there at first, one in each end of the house. One time, I went to the bank and made a deposit, left my address, and the teller said, "Oh, you live in that house out on Joe Sayers that has a nudist colony in it." And I said, "How do you know there's a nudist colony there?" He said, "Oh, the pilots out of Bergstrom Field told me about it. If you knew what goes on in there, the walls could talk, you'd never leave home." Well, that's kind of what it was, but I enjoyed living there. And Hugh Black and I lived there together. He is just 2 years older than I am. He's from Memphis, Tennessee. And after Hugh and I had been living there together for a while, we decided to go to Mexico for a year and write. While we were there, I bought 2 puma cubs, and a male and a female. They were siblings. And we found out from a zoo that if pumas are born in the wild and brought into civilization, they won't live. If they're born in captivity, they will live. But these poor little things, the female died right away. The male died almost a year later. And he had grown up. I'll show you a picture of him with Hugh. Got it? He was a nice cat. And we had him inoculated when we lived in Mexico. We had him inoculated and clipped his claws because we were afraid we wouldn't be able to bring him into the States. We also had 2 tiny little parrots, and we knew that parrots are really forbidden. You can't bring them in. But the law says that if you've had the parrots in your possession in Mexico for 6 months, you can bring them on in. So when we were coming home, we came up to the border, and the men in charge saw the parrots. They said, "Oh boy, we know what we're going to do now." And so I brought out a letter I had that proved I'd had those parrots for 6 months, and they were just crestfallen. They were going to take them away from us. But then we said, "Well, what about this puma?" They said, "I'll take him on. It doesn't make it. We don't have anything on pumas." So he came to live with us at Joe Sayers Avenue, 5512 Joe Sayers Avenue in Austin. And this wall that was going all the way around, we stretched a wire across it down to about the middle and ran a chain on it, and the other end of the chain went around Thor's neck, and we had it locked with a lock. And that didn't slow him down much. As he grew, he could run and swing his feet around on the end of that chain. And he could even do it from a stop. And we'd tell people, "Go out and look at the kitty cat." And they go out there and he'd jump up and whack them with his hind feet. So that was lots of fun. I have a movie I was going to show y'all of my nephew playing with the cat, wrestling. My sister, my nephew and niece used to spend time with us there. And when my sister would leave them there, she told me, "Now don't let Milton go near that cat." She wasn't out of sight good. I said, "Milton, don't you want to go play with the kitty?" Which he did. So they were about the same size, and they wrestled. And a girl next door had a 8mm camera that she let me and took pictures of him, and that's what I transferred on to the, what is it? Was a television tape, you know.
DVD or VHS?
No, VHS, yeah. And I took him out to Barton Springs once, and when he was almost grown, and we walked up the creek, and I was carrying him like this. I don't guess you can see it. You can? And I was going down an incline bank of the creek, and he whirled around to catch onto me. You know, cats don't like to be out where they're not supported. And one claw we had failed to clip caught me right under the eye and ripped it open. And I had 5 big black stitches that were very impressive looking. But He was easily trained. The only thing about it, if he got a hold of something that he could overpower, he would just revert to a savage. You wouldn't dare go near him then. So anyway, that was, the day we went here. He had a spell. We took him to the vet, and the vet said to bring him back in 2 weeks. And so in 2 weeks, I went out to get him in his house, which was a Foot Locker I had in the Army, and he was lying there dead. So I wrapped him up in a tarpaulin and took him out to the taxidermist and says, "There's a dead puma in here. I want his hide tan." He says, "Do you want the head with it?" I said, no, just the hide. So in 6 months, the hide came back, and it was just beautiful. You had to soak it in water and take it down all flat. And when it dried, it stayed that way. And so we still have that hide. And Cousin Eula, who was really my mother's cousin, said, yes, she traveled with us. She said, yes, this is lovely. This way you'll have him with you forever. And Hugh said, yes, it's so satisfactory. We're going to have it done to all of our loved ones. So that was Thor the Puma. We enjoyed living in this place and sold it to Josephine Reagan, and then what did she lived there a while, and she sold it again, I think.
I bet, yeah.
But that was almost 60 years ago, and that's all I know.
Well, how did you choose that house on Joe Sayers?
I chose it because I was working for the U.S. Geological Survey upstairs, and downstairs on Lavaca Street was a real estate agent. And on the way home one day, I stopped and asked him if he had anything to sell that he thought I might like. Oh, sure, I'll show you this house. So he drove me out there and showed me. And I signed the paper, leaning it up against the wall. I liked it. And it was cheap. There was, and I could just make monthly payments to the original owner. And so it was very satisfactory.
So it sounds like an interesting design.
It was. The house, as I say, slanted across the lot, and it was glass the whole side. It was just one long room, 10 feet wide, and I guess about 30 feet long, with the kitchen in the middle, and it had a back door that you could go to the backyard. The main way you got in there was from the front of the house. There was a door between the wall and the house. And the house was like this, and the wall went this way and this way, all the way around. And the grass was, I had carpet grass solid there. And I must tell you, Thorpe, as far as he could reach, he pulled it up with his teeth. He had just absolutely blank. One thing that was interesting, I planted a pecan tree in the yard, and it was about 5 years old. It had some lower limbs going out. One night I was asleep in the bedroom, which was way back here, dead to the world. And I woke up and ran out there, and Thor was hanging by his neck by the chain from the lower limb. And he hadn't made a sound, but I just knew, and I came up there, and so I put him back over the limb. And that was the end of that. But it was almost a mother instinct. Well, one time I was out in the front yard without any clothes on, and I had a little Raphael knitted hat that I had bought in Europe. That's all I had to keep the sun off of me. And there were, next door, there were tall elm trees. And I heard somebody say, "That sure is a fancy hat you have, a young boy." Climbed up the tree. So that was the end of that.
So do you remember some of your neighbors that lived around there?
I remember just one on that same side. There was a blind couple, and they had a little girl, and that little bitch would go and hide from them when she didn't want to do what they wanted to do. And they'd ask us to come over and help them put up canned goods or something once in a while, you know. Well, blind people have real good memories, and they just remember which was which. There were other people lived in that house, but I remember the blind people. And on the other side of us lived a couple that had a little boy, and they had chickens in the backyard. And the wife's mother would go out there and say, "Here, pretty girl, come get your food." And I didn't think those hens were very pretty myself, but she did. We didn't really socialize with any of them.
So at the time, were you a professor in San Marcos? So you drove back?
Yes, I commuted, but I was always looking for a place to buy here. One time, I wanted pea gravel in the driveway, and so I called this company, and they came out and they poured a lot of pea gravel in the driveway. It must have been about 6 inches thick. So I thought, oh boy, this is going to be nice. I had my car, a 1950 Studebaker, you know, the bullet, parked out here. And I came around and wheel running in the driveway. The wheels hit that ground and it stopped. They couldn't drive through that pea gravel. So I told them, they came out and scraped up half of it, took it back.
Were the streets paved on Joe Sayers at that time?
I don't think so. I think they paved the street after that. That may have been when the number of the house got changed. Now there was a space about 20 feet out. The wall around the house left room for a driveway on the north side, I guess. And in the wall left a space out in front which I never did anything with. I call that the desert. And I put yuccas and agaves and cacti out there. I never did any work on it, but I love the inside of the yard. I always liked doing yard work. And I planted bushes all around the inside. And there was a patch of fig trees on the far side away from the house. Just single trunks coming up. And I planted camellias in among them because the camellias is supposed to have half shade, speckled, sun speckled, and they're supposed to have real acid soil. So I put a lot of peat moss in there and planted these things. They grew real, real well. They put out buds. And so I thought, oh boy, they're going to make nice flowers. So I'll just make the flowers bigger. I'll put fertilizer. What I didn't know was fertilizing them when they have the buds there will make the buds fall off, which they did. But I learned that the hard way. The edge of the house on the inside, it had a wide overhang in the glass, and I put a gutter there. And down at the far end of the gutter, we had a great big olla that I brought from Mexico, and we'd catch rain in that. When we lived in Mexico, the first place we lived, that olla was the only place we could get hot water. It was up on actually what they call a mirador, which is a decorated room on top of a house. And that was in Oaxaca. Only place we could find to rent. And the only bathroom we had, this was 3 stories up. Down at the far end of the building was the maid's bathroom. And that's what we had to use. And no hot water. So the only way we would get a shower, we could put this big, huge olla on top of that and build a fire under it and get the water barely warm. And we had a hose that we would siphon the hose. That was really living. We didn't last but about 3 months there, and we moved to Ajijic, which is a small town on Lake Chapala, which is 30 miles south of Guadalajara. And we went there because Life magazine had run a story about it. They showed the lake, and the lake was half covered with water hyacinths that float, When the wind would blow one way, it would blow them all over one side. The wind changed, it would blow them all over the backside. And we lived there for the rest of the year.
How do you spell the name of that town?
Ajijic. And we liked living there. They had during the Holy Week, they had a parade every morning that would come down the street. We rented a house there from Margaret Lake, a woman who had been on the stage in Mexico City and in New York. She had written a play for herself, and it ran 27 performances in New York. Margaret had rented this house from a man. You know, the houses in Mexico are just a big rectangle, and the block divided up in little rectangles by adobe walls, thick adobe walls. So the house had a green double gate to drive your horse in, and a patio on the right, and then a big living room in the front, and the kitchen and dining room back here, and behind that the bedroom, and that was the end of the house. But in the back of that was the toilet, and it was a 2-room bathroom. It had toilet on one side and shower on the other. To get the shower water hot, you had a rapido, it was called. Rapido was a water coil going up in there, and you'd put burning chips in there till got the water hot. Then it would come down in the bathtub. The bathtub was made out of concrete and cold as could be. We wouldn't let any part of it touch you except the soles of your feet. And the house had no running water. But the way we'd get water, the house had a well, and the maid would go out there and pull water up out of the well and put it into big Oyas in the kitchen. And Margaret Lake rented that place to us for $18 a month. That was because she had rented it from the owner for about $10 a month, and she had furnished it. So while we were living in the back part, Margaret was still up on the living room, which was a big room with a bar and windows that opened out to the street. And she lived there for a couple of months, and then she could not go back to work in Mexico City. And every morning she'd go down to the bar and order one martini. The doctor told her she could have one martini. So the bartender mixed her martini in a quart jar. And I guess that held her for a while. Anyway, she disappeared. And one day this little man came to our door and says, "I want the rent." We didn't know what he meant. So he told us he owned the house, and his woman had rented it from him. So I said, "How much?" So he told us just a little bit. We gave him that, and from then on, that was all it ever cost every month. So we were practically living there for nothing. And we had a maid that did everything for $16 a month. And, well, neither one of us had much of an income. Each of us had about $40 a month to live on. But we stretched it. And we got to know the people of Ahig. And one day one of them came by and says, "Come on, get in my Thunderbird, we'll go over here where they're filming a movie." And sure enough, over there, and there were armed soldiers all around this place where they were filming the movie. And we sat on the hillside. Oh, the reason we could get in was because his brother ran the generators that used electricity. We sat on this little hillside overlooking the road, and it took them half the morning to get set up for Mr. Peck. And then when they were ready, Gregory Peck came out and shot his scene. Then he leaned up against the leaning board, that they have, so they could sit down, it'll mess up their costume. And I told you, I never have talked to him. So I want to say hello to Gregory Peck. So I did. I said, Mr. Peck, I just wanted to say hello to you. And he said, well, hello. And turned away. So I knew that's all he was going to say.
What year was that? When did you live in Mexico?
1959. When we saw him filming. Joan Collins come riding up the hill on a horse and stop and talk to Gregory Peck. And then they said, Miss Collins, we're ready for your close-up. That sounded familiar. So they did that. And then, of course, they spliced it all together and make it right. I didn't speak to Joan Collins.
Now, you mentioned the rent you paid Mexico. Do you remember how much you paid for your house in Austin?
It was not very much. Seemed like I still owed $3,000 on it when I bought it. And now I understand this was a long time ago. I paid my monthly payments were something like $20 a month. Up to the bank, I take it out of there.
Did you shop at the shopping center in Crestview or around in there? Did you
No, but they opened a new Handy Andy over on Burnett Road. Is that still there?
No.
I don't think it is.
I don't remember where that was. Do you?
No.
Well, to get to Burnett Road, we went south on Joe Sayers, turned right on North Loop, and went straight over to Burnett Road. Then the Handy Andy was across, a little farther south. And when they were opening this thing, and I won a barbecue grill. Come in! You! Somebody's knocking.
A little about your history.
All right.
That'd be really good to get.
My great grandfather, when he was 4 years old, came from Germany, and with his father and sister. That's when the Verein was moving people here, and they'd give them land, and so they came to New Braunfels. And I want to show you my family crest. It's hanging on the wall just inside. Can you take it down? Yeah, that's good. All right. This is my family crest, and it says in the book of Herod, it says Hungarian family Petmecky. So the crest was bestowed on my ancient grandfather and in Hungary, and it means little killer of Turks. I see here's the Turkish arm and the crescent moon. That's a symbol for Turkey. That's my ancestors smiting the Turks. So that's that. And this great grandfather's name was Joseph Carl. And when they were living in New Braunfels, the mother died, and the father took his children and moved to Fredericksburg. So and married again. So there are all sorts of Petmeckys in Fredericksburg that I don't know. But a great grandfather and his brother, I didn't mention, they came to Austin and opened a business. Well, I think they apprenticed for a while with somebody. And he made guns, and he invented a spur that all the cowboys had to have because it was spring steel, and you couldn't get caught in anything, it would come off. And I've seen one of those spurs in a museum out in Amarillo, I think. So anyway, they eventually had a store in Austin on Congress Avenue. It was a sporting goods store. And any man who hunted or fished hung out at Petmecky's because the main thing that went on there was fish stories and hunting stories. And the family name was known around Austin for a long time. My grandmother, in fact, when I was a teenager, was at a store or something, and she was going to charge something, and the girl said, "Well, how do you spell your name?" And my grandmother said, "Well, it's easy to see you haven't lived in Austin very long." She spelled it. But the some Petmecky's still living there.
Do you know what year they came to the United States and then to Austin?
Yeah. They came when Texas was still a republic. That was before 1845. I know because that makes me eligible to belong to belong to the daughters of the Republic of Texas. Anyway, he went on to he went in the Civil War, closed his business, went in the Civil War, way out west, and he was in he was friends of Buffalo Bill Cody, the famous man, and his son, my grandfather, had been kind of puny, and the doctor said, keep him outdoors. Well, he had a store with an unlimited supply of ammunition, and so we stood there and practiced rifle shooting all day. My grandmother's brother said he had seen him seen Fred up to his ankles in shell cases. That's kind of hard to believe. But anyway, he got to be such a good shot that Buffalo Bill asked him to be in his show, Buffalo Bill's always show. He wouldn't do it because nice people just didn't do that. But he did go to St. Louis and competed in a rifle meet. He won a big gold medal that was inscribed champion rifle shot of the world. And that I thought was impressive.
And his name was?
Fred. There are about 5 Fred Petmeckys in Texas still. Whoa. One down in Houston and one up in Fredericksburg, and my Uncle Fred, he lived to the age of 100. He had been married 3 times and never had any children, and I sort of looked after him in his old age. He'd still be alive if he hadn't been so impatient, but he was in the assisted living place here, and he got out of the shower, and the nurse was going to come dry him, and she said, "Now sit there, Uncle Fred, I'll be right back." Well, right back was about 5 seconds. She wasn't back, so he got up to go, and he fell and hit his head. He was in a coma for a week, but he died then. I had a big birthday party for him back when I could use the computer out here that printed colored invitation. I forgot how to do that. And it was sure fun though, when I could use it. Different size print.
Did you serve in the military yourself?
Oh yes, I did. I was a pilot in the Army Air Corps. See, my father had been in the Navy at the end of World War I in something called Kid Cruise. He could go in at age 17 and you just had to sign up for 1 year. But he was so gung-ho Navy that when I came to the University of Texas, I got in the Naval ROTC. They took 110 men. When the first time they took anybody, it just started. And if you stayed there till you graduated, you'd be a naval officer. So when Pearl Harbor happened, Dad tried to get back in the service. He was too old and beat up. And he called my grandmother and said, "Don't let Bubba do anything." Wow. So I was planning on staying there like I got to be a naval officer. I thought that would make him happy. But recruiters came around recruiting for Army Air Corps pilots. So I went down and asked Dad about it. "Oh yeah, that's fine. That'll get you in the war quicker, so go on." He was so patriotic. And so I went through I had to wait 3 months to get in, but after I signed up. But then I went and took pre-flight in Santa Ana, California. And then I went to 29 Palms for primary. And most of the men washed out. The reason they were so eager to get you in was that if you washed out, you stayed in. Now, that's not the way the Navy was. The Navy lets you out back to civilian life. But if you stayed in, you could go on to bombardier school, navigator school. But I luckily passed primary, pre-flight, where I met the girl I married much later, advanced in Marfa, Texas, and I graduated there, and then came to Bergstrom to learn how to fly C-47. Oh, and you could have, then I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and you had a choice. You could stay there and be trained to tow gliders and drop paratroopers, or you could go with somebody that's already learned that as a co-pilot. Well, that would get me overseas quicker, so I did that. Went overseas in a converted B-24, the same one that Eleanor Roosevelt had been in. In fact, there was a little sign over the toilet that said, you know what, Eleanor Roosevelt sat here. So we got out, we went to New Caledonia, New Caledonia, we got off, and then went up north to Espiritu Santos in the New Hebrides. That's where I was first based. I think the New Hebrides Islands have changed names. But from there we would fly up the Solomon Islands, taking mail and medicine and food. One time I had to get in the plane. Another plane had just come up from New Zealand, had a big pile of dead sheep in the middle of the plane. And we had to crawl over the dead sheep. We were really glad to get those sheep, I tell you. They were in a cheesecloth bag. Anyway, our crews out there had pilot, co-pilot, navigator, and crew chief. And we'd fly up the line. We'd go to Saggy, Munda, Russell, Bougainville. Bougainville was the end. And pick up casualties. The planes had litters that fitted against the sides. We'd bring them back to civilization. And for rest leave, there was a group of P-38 pilots right next to us, and we flew them down to New Zealand. And that's my first glimpse of New Zealand, which I've seen a lot of since. Anyway, while I was there, my father died, and I was still engaged to Betty. And my mother died 4 months later, and that left my little sister in college, age 17, and Boomer, my little brother, age 7. I was 23, and I became their guardian. So if you can imagine a 23-year-old boy with that, I didn't know anything to do. We just do what Dad had done. So anyway, I got out of the Army then to raise those kids. And lived with our grandmother in Hutto for a while. I lived with our grandmother in Austin because she lived in what is now Pillow House. It's on a picture of Pillow House is on a button. Ran the Austin Historic Society.
Where's that located?
1403 West 9th Street, 9th and Pressler. And Pressler runs very close to the house because my great-grandfather, Ben Pillow, gave the land for Pressler. And in the other house, his brother built just exactly like it. But the people living in there were two old maids, Eugenia and Dorinda Pillow, and they wouldn't give any land. Dorinda Pillow taught school, and there's a school in Austin named for her.
Still going okay? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah.
Any more questions?
No, I think that's good.
Well, anyway, I've got 3 degrees from the University of Texas, 2 masters and 1 bachelor's. Oh, well, anyway, I taught art at Texas School for the Deaf, and then when Boomer got in medical school, I moved down to Lamarck to be close by. And he graduated and went on, and he now lives in Atlanta with his 4th wife. And he is a cosmetic surgeon. He was his 3rd wife made him go to art school, and so he spent 6 years learning to be a cardiac surgeon. And he told me that it was too bad. He worked for 2 cardiologists. They would work on the patient first, and if they couldn't save him, they'd give him to Boomer to try to save him. And of course, most of them died. So it got him down, and he said as soon as he saved up $2 million, he quit, went up to Philadelphia, spent 2 years learning